Spectre Vision Radio.
Along the path we parted ways, I walk the night, you tread the day, and we forgot we slept in knots all on the sunset coast. We shared our meals, we shared our songs, by candlelight or by the sun. I know you've sung 1,000 more, oh, since the time you've gone.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Ruck Rabbit Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Chad Redding, and this is my co-host, Timothy Renner. This is episode number 2, and we are interviewing a gentleman I know here. I've known you for a while now.
Yes.
Has it been 5 years or longer?
Oh, it's probably been 6 or 7 years.
It's been a while. So, this gentleman, introduce yourself. Who are you?
Well, I'm Steve Jennings.
Steve Jennings, and you are from?
I'm from Augusta, West Virginia.
This is a gentleman who is one of my friends. You are one of the Ruck Rabbit crew, or whatever you want to call us, one of my main camping guys. You're also one of my mentors. I consider you a mentor. You are a really good friend of mine, too. And like I said, we've been doing this now for 6 to 7 years, at least. At least.
Mm-hmm.
At least. If you hear some little ringing, it's my dog Toby is walking around. So we are here actually on a camp out this weekend.
Yes, we are.
In Michaud State Forest here in south central Pennsylvania.
And in a beautiful area of pine.
Yes.
And evergreen. Usually we camp in hardwood forest, so this is a wonderful change because you don't realize how quiet the piney woods are.
And they're nice on your feet when you're hiking.
Oh,
pine needles.
And great for sleeping on, too.
True, yeah.
As you can see, these two gentlemen share a love of walking sticks or staffs. So I got two wizards here with me. The goal of this podcast, for those who don't know, who haven't seen episode 1, is to just basically record the average outdoorsman's stories. And I don't consider I consider everybody an outdoorsman. Anybody can be an outdoors person, even if you're somebody who just goes for a walk in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I think too often amongst the outdoors community, there's too much pressure to be, I got to be a hunter, I got to be a fisherman, I have to be a backpacker. I think that's wrong. I think that, and you guys agree with me on that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, and even beyond that, I love to camp. Well, you have to be a certain type of camper. You have to be an ultralight camper. You have to be a primitive camper, or else you're not really doing it.
Right.
And
if you don't have this kind of gear, then you're not doing it right.
Exactly.
Whatever gear works.
Exactly. I feel that it's wrong to class people like that. I think anybody who just gets enjoyment out of the outdoors is an outdoors person.
Absolutely.
I've had people tell me that, like, I have a preferred hiking shoe. I've had people tell me, those are garbage. They're not, real hikers don't use those, but they feel good on my feet and they work for me. So
right.
That's what it comes down to. Like, they don't hurt my feet and they work.
And we are going to cover gear on this channel too, on this YouTube podcast. We are going to cover gear a little bit too, but right now that's not the main focus of this. Mm-hmm. Because we could go down that rabbit hole, and boy, was that ever a deep rabbit hole. So, Steve, tell us a little about yourself. What got you used to this? I guess it's a lifestyle. Would you call it a lifestyle, Tim?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Well, when I was really young, I got a chance to go to southwestern Virginia and spend a lot of time with my grandparents. And for 3 summers, I was there. And they were wonderful because that really inoculated me and developed my passion for being in the outdoors. And of course, my grandfather was born in 1909, and so he grew up in an entirely different era. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't a camper and outdoorsman himself, but by golly, he taught me a lot of what I know about axes, and somewhat contrarian to some modern views about them, but he told me a lot of what I know about axes. And his best friend was a forest ranger, a retired forest ranger, and he really gave me a huge appreciation for just the wonder that was in nature. And So I got, even when I was younger, I got a book called The Golden Book of Camping and Camp Crafts. It was originally published in like 1958 or 59.
It's a really good book.
Well before. Yeah.
Reprint?
Reprint of that,
yeah. Well before Zip Codes of the original came out. And then I also got a later edition in like 1972. Even though I was 16, I just loved that book so much, and it gave a lot of basic skills that I really embraced, and some things that I really enjoy doing, and I learned how to do. I learned how to tie that's where I learned how to tie my first knots, and I learned about tarp camping, and learned about how to think about what you bring to camp, and all sorts of stuff. So it was exhilarating, and kind of got into horses and agriculture, and I went through college, got a master's degree in animal science, which is essentially animal physiology, the focus I had, and got away from that. And then especially, I was outdoors for a hike, and I was outdoors for an occasional overnight. And then back in 1991, it wasn't. It was 1999. We moved to a place that was on the side of a mountain. We bought 10 acres, and we had a year-round stream running through it, and lots of great places to camp. And I just got this bug, and I started camping on the back ridge and down by the creek. And I had never built a debris shelter before, so that was my first debris shelter, and I stayed in it one night, and for several nights actually, and started testing myself. So for example, for survival, I started saying, okay, well, if I let myself get really cold and borderline hypothermic, can I get a fire started?
Wow.
And so I took a day, and I did it with, I did use a match, but I was like this, shaking really bad, and I was down to a t-shirt, and it was probably right at 40 degrees, and the wind was blowing. So I let myself get really cold, and even my hands couldn't feel them very well. I said, can I do it if I have to? And I learned that I could. Wasn't easy, but I did. So I started testing myself and enjoying those challenges. So
isn't that interesting? we were talking a similar thing just before. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it grew from there. You know, it just then all forms of camping. Our back ridge ended up being a great place just to go camp. So I could go take a night and say, oh, I'm going to go camp on the back ridge tonight. And I did that a lot, and I think that reignited the passion that I had when I was younger. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not meant to be a farmer or a horseman so much as I'm meant to be in the woods. And that's where I'm
common thread here.
That's where I'm supposed to be.
When you were young, were you in Scouts or anything like that?
I made it through Cub Scouts. I didn't quite become a Weeblo. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I still have my very first pocket knife, which is a Cub Scout pocket knife. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. So I have really never carried any kind of pocket knife other than that type of multifunction tool.
Right.
And never will. So yeah, I was in Scouts, but didn't really go far enough to get the camping training and all that.
Me either. But it's interesting though, how I think some people get that love of the woods from the Scouts. Some people are very passionate about it, and then others, with me, it's growing up on a farm with you, your grandparents, whatever it is, however it gets there.
And I did both. I was in Scouts. Before that, I lived in the Pigeon Hills, which you've been in the Pigeon Hills. And it's wooded, and I roamed the woods like you. And then I was a Scout for a little while, and then I was just kind of like, I didn't like the organization. I kind of, not the scouting organization. I think Scouts is a great organization, but I was more like, I don't know, I guess I was a punk. I was like, I'm going to do my own thing. I just wanted to learn it myself. Yeah. And
however,
and it's not wrong. Either way, it's not wrong.
The big thing about learning in general, I found, is learning the way you learn.
Right.
Yes.
And you have to figure that out. I think, I was in college before I realized, I learned by hearing, but other people learn visually. Other people learn, so it's different for everybody.
And when I teach wilderness skills, which I do that part-time in, I tell people that what I'm showing you is not the way however rephrase this. What I'm showing you is not the only way to do things.
Right.
And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not hurt as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody or destroying the environment. It's not wrong. Am I correct on that?
Oh, that's correct. And I think the other thing is that if you take professional instruction in wilderness skills, one of the great things you have available to you is there are lots of different ways that people teach them. Some take kind of more of a military type challenge, and others, you know, where, okay, you got 5 minutes to do this after you learn the basic skill, then they start drilling you right away. Not my cup of tea.
Not mine either.
And then others will take time, say, okay, we're going to teach you to become proficient here and now, and then you take your own time and you master the skill. And when you master the skill, if the time comes you have to get it done in 5 minutes, then you'll be ready to do it in 5 minutes.
So did you get a lot of training, or most of it self-taught?
Most of it comes from videos from Ron Hood.
Okay.
Survival.com, and Ron Hood is a wilderness survival trainer, and very good. I mean, he taught that at a professional level. He'd been a consultant, like, for the early stages of developing Bear Grylls show.
Okay.
And
yeah, he was a very knowledgeable individual.
Very knowledgeable, and he's, in fact, the series of videos that he has are still available. And I learned a lot of skills from that. I learned a lot self-taught. And then I met a man named Marty Simon, who had the Wilderness Learning Center up in Chateaugay, New York. And Marty and Ron were very similar in their approach, very practical, very applied, very whatever works. And Marty taught me a lot about foraging and plant identification and usage and utilization, and it was all just really accelerated my passion. In fact, as we're standing here, I just finished a cup of pine needle tea. And
not to interject, but it's a skill you can't turn off.
No, you can't.
I learned this from him. Okay, so I'm in your lineage of learning the same. You know, I consider it because I learned from you and Tom, another individual that we're going to be interviewing, and you can't turn it off. So you start foraging, you start looking at things when you're driving along the road, and so on and so forth.
You're right. Yeah, you can't turn it off, and you're always. That's why my wife and I can't hike together. She likes, I'm going from point A to point B. Let's go to point B, and I'm like, oh, look at this, look at that. Oh, wait a minute, let's do this. We were on a hike up in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, and there were some people that were coming down as part of the AT, and people coming down as we were going up, this young couple, and I was sitting there staring at a plant. And so we struck up a little conversation.
This has happened to me, too.
And they said, well, they said, what are you looking at? I said, I'm looking at that plant. And they said, well, what's special about that plant? And I said, it's bloodroot. And I told the history about it. Very unique shape of leaf, so you never mistake it. But the root, if you break the root open, the juice that comes out of it is red, very bright red, and it was used as an antiseptic. It has antiseptic properties. So that was and then my wife's sitting there while I'm telling them about it, and she's like rolling her eyes, and she's ready to move on, and I'm like, I'm not done yet.
Do you think it was that, I'm interested in the part where you say you were challenging yourself, you're making yourself cold and doing that. Do you think that came partially from like the survivalist videos, like you wanted to test that?
Yes.
That knowledge kind of thing, yeah.
Absolutely, and I learned, another thing that I learned how to do was, I built on the property we had where I really started developing my wilderness skills. I learned after my first debris hut, I built several debris huts, quite a few, and some of them I could whip together in an hour, but that's only if you got a lot of stuff available close by. But the big lesson of that is once you built a debris hut or a shelter just out of natural materials, you will always carry a tarp with you because in a real world situation,
it takes a long time.
It takes a long time and a lot of effort.
And you got to have a lot of materials. I mean, even with all the pine needles here, it's still like you would have to pull duff from yards away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. From a greater distance than you could ever imagine until once you've done it. But I worked with leaves because I was in a hardwood forest, and the last shelter I built was a pretty big one. It's a semi-permanent shelter, and it's like a normal debris shelter in the back, like 8 feet long and only about this tall, and it was covered. Then the front of it was like a wiki up, like a teepee shape, rounded shape, and it was about 3.5 feet tall. And I did get the idea for that from Dave Canterbury, but I did mine better. I did mine better because it was more sophisticated. I heated it with hot rocks, and that took 15 hours to put that thing together because
and a lot of calorie usage.
Right. That's when you get down to survival, a lot of it's calories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
exactly.
is. But one of the theories is that you expend your calories initially. Mm-hmm. And don't wait till you're severely calorie deficient.
That
you
makes
go ahead
sense.
and do it.
Yeah.
And do it officially. That's why if you know you're going to be stuck somewhere for a while, go ahead and build your shelter and put out the effort to build your shelter first, and then you can deal with your other priorities.
That's why you always carry a tarp with you.
Always carry a tarp, because then in 5 minutes or less, you can have something that will keep the rain off.
And it doesn't even have to be a big one. Just even a small one that's a 6x7.
Or military poncho. Mm-hmm.
Something
to get you out of the weather quickly.
It helps a lot.
It does.
It helps a lot.
And that's one of the things that most people who run into big trouble and get lost or have to be rescued, or day hikers who aren't prepared for having to spend an overnight. And I want to keep my load light. No, you want to be able to not die.
That doesn't mean be afraid. It doesn't mean I got to go out. I always got to carry and be prepared to survive.
Right.
But just have some common sense. A small little tarp that folds up to about that big.
Yeah.
At least one metal vessel to boil water. Mm-hmm. Could be your water bottle. Could be just a cup that goes on the bottom of your. You don't have to have a lot of stuff.
Right.
You don't. And I've seen people do mile hikes in like flip-flops and with one water bottle. And I'm like, you trip and you fall off that way. If you're on a ridge and you fall off into the rocks, it might be a long time before somebody finds you. I mean, what if you can't yell? What if you can't blow a whistle? You might be unconscious and you might wake up hours later and nobody's around.
I mean, at White Rocks, I remember that day, we saw people hiking in flip-flops, and there were copperheads all over the rocks.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
A lot of people, when you're out here, the longer you spend out in the wild, the longer you spend out in nature, you get in an area and you begin to learn what's there, and as well as what risks are there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's ticks, maybe it's mosquitoes, maybe it's snakes, maybe it's a bear. So, and that can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, the longer you're out here, the more you do this, the more there's a chance you're going to run into a situation. Yeah. I've run into bears multiple times.
I got charged by one.
Tell that story. Okay, this is a good one.
In fact, it was October 2015, so it was 10 years ago this month. I was over in a part of Shenandoah National Park that goes down to the South Fork of the Shenandoah River, and my dog was with me. And we were walking down. I was looking for a new place to camp because where I had been camping, there were bears all over the place. and I had this great campsite at my former spot, and then the next time I went there, the bears had discovered it, including the really soft place I had to pitch my tarp, and you could see where the bears had been. I said, well, I guess that's done. So I looked for another place to go, and I saw this area that went down to the river. I thought that'd be nice, and it's a bit of a hike, but there was a creek that fed the river that I could have gotten water from, so this has got potential. So I'm walking down there with my dog. He's walking in front of me, and I see this dead tree, this snag, and there I see a yearling bear cub up in the tree.
That's always bad.
And so I look down, okay, if there's the yearling, where the mama?
Right.
And the mama was down at the bottom, and I could barely see the back. There was undergrowth there, and I could barely see the back of the new cub. And so my first instinct was stupid. My first instinct was, let me take a picture. And and I'm like, no, that's dumb. Well, my dog was a Norwegian elk hound. He's a hunting dog, and the wind shifted from the bear to us. he caught a whiff of it. He's starting to head towards the bear. And I'm going, Thor, no. And so she picks her head up and she locks eyes at me. And she starts charging. A lot of people have different definitions for a bluff charge. Mm-hmm. But generally when a bear bluff charges, their ears are up. They're hopping, or they might run hard at you for 2 or 3 steps. Well, she was about 20 yards, a little over 20 yards away. And she put her head down and she was barreling through the underbrush. And so I bent down to try to grab my dog. And when I bent down, I just roared like an animal. And then I heard a rustle, and I thought, I had my knife out. But I'm like, I might not win this one. Mm. But when I roared, she had turned around, and by that time, this is like 2 seconds. It seemed like a minute. Right. Everything was slow motion.
Yeah, I know that.
Because I had rehearsed in my head, what if a bear charges me? And I didn't have bear spray, but the bear came so fast, I wouldn't have had time to unholster bear spray and get it ready to use anyway. So, and plus the fact the wind was still blowing right to me, so it just...
face full of bear spray.
Yeah, I would have had a face full of bear spray.
It would have been...
The bear would have said, gee, he tastes funny.
It would have been Steve's spray.
Yeah. So anyway, I roared, and I heard a rustling, and the bear moved away. A bunch of birds flew out of the tree, and even my dog ran off a little bit. But she was aware of her cub in the tree, because that cub had, as soon as she picked her head up and looked at me, that cub started skittering down the tree, and so they took off. And when I stepped off the distance where she had knocked down the undergrowth getting to me, she was less than 25 feet from me when she turned, and I'm like, well, that's an adventure I hope I never have to repeat.
But that got your heartbeat up a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's funny because in the moment I was cool as a cucumber.
Right, it's afterwards.
And then afterwards, it's like the dog and I were going.
Right. Yeah.
What just happened here?
That's right. And so that's probably my most exciting adventure in the woods.
Yeah, that was a good story.
And I'm perfectly happy if that never gets topped.
Yeah, right? Once and done.
Yeah, I think I had one, well, I'll go through that story another time, where she was coming across a creek. And she stopped, she turned around because her cubs were on the other side. And she just all night for hours over there pacing back and forth, popping their jaws. They pop their jaws. It's like, it's what they sound like. So if you hear a black bear pop in your jaws, it's irritated, it's mad, it's not in a happy place.
Right, and so you just start talking to the bear and
do not play dead with black bears.
Be aware of where your feet are going, but try not to turn away from the bear. Just look at the bear, talk to the bear, and start to back off. And most of the time, if a bear is agitated like that, and that bear sees you back off while you're talking to him, but you're still facing him, then you're not a threat anymore. But black bears typically, it's especially if a sow bear feels like you're a threat to her cubs. Mm-hmm. Those are, with black bears, that's the most common incidence of when people get charged and attacked by a bear.
Yeah,
a black bear.
If a black bear is going to predate on you, it's just going to keep coming. Then you have to fight for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's very, 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 very rare.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's probably happened in a handful. I'd have to do the research, but a handful of times.
Yeah, it's rare. Now, grizzly bear, that's different.
Yeah, that's a whole different monster, so to speak.
They will see you as lunch.
Yeah. So your main way of interacting out here is through camping.
Yes.
And through foraging. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and I fish a little bit, and I darn sure want to get back to at least hunting small game. I'm too stinking old to be dragging a deer out of the woods. So I'm not going to do that, but, squirrels and rabbits and stuff like that, I want to get back to that. And I do some fishing. I like to do more of that, too. But my primary way of interacting is just coming out and camping, foraging, and sometimes just, going for a hike. Sometimes going out and sitting on a rock and doing nothing.
Yeah. Something about it, right?
Yeah.
You just get out there, get the trees around you, and it's good for the mind. Good for the soul too, I think.
There's a reason that in Japan they prescribe forest time.
Yeah, forest bathing. They call it.
Forest bathing. Yeah. They'll prescribe that you spend a certain amount of time doing it, and it's true, especially if you're fortunate enough to be in an area where there's forest. The atmosphere is changed, and it's different, and it can really bring a lot of healing and a lot of peace, a lot of stress reduction. You can forget about everything that's going on.
And we touched on that in the last episode. Mm-hmm. We did, and I think that's going to be another common thread.
Yeah.
As we do this podcast, I think a lot of people are going to say that. It's going to be the same thing.
Yeah, there's no question as to whether it's mentally healing, but I truly believe it's physically healing as well. I mean, your mind and body are connected.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, and with most people are under stress. Most people have chronically elevated cortisol levels caused by stress, and when you come out here, that just goes, it goes right down, and really just changes everything. I hadn't had a chance to get out that much before this trip, and I was so looking forward to it.
I think the last time we went out was when we did the charcoal hearth.
Yeah.
If you have watched the Ruck Rabbit Outdoors channel, you've seen Steve with me. I think the one winter camp out we did here, I talked about your setup.
Yeah,
and then you were on the charcoal hearth camp out, which was fun. We had a blast.
No, we did.
That was late spring.
Yeah,
early spring.
It was like camping in the mountains. You rarely have a perfectly level campsite, so we had a perfectly level, incredibly soft campsite. Ground that was easy to put a tent stake in, but also tight enough you didn't have to worry about things falling down.
It was nice.
It was about nice. Perfect.
And if you want to see that video, it's on the Ruck Rabbit Outdoors YouTube channel. Not to hawk it, but it's there. You can see it, and there's a lot of history in that area too. And there's a lot of history in these mountains in the mountains of Virginia.
Yeah, and Virginia, West Virginia, all the Appalachian chain, which northern folks usually say Appalachian. But it's both. Either one's correct. So either one's correct. It just depends on where you're from.
What do they say in Maryland?
Well, when I grew up, it was Appalachia.
Okay.
But I took banjo lessons from a guy in West Virginia, and he told me if I hear somebody say Appalachian, we're not. And he was from West Virginia.
Yeah.
He said it's Appalachia. If I hear somebody. But I knew other people from West Virginia were like, no, it's Appalachian. They're like Apple-at-chin. That's how you pronounce it.
Appalachian.
So I think it's all over the map.
It is. It is. Locally, I'm from southwestern Virginia, and my relatives and the people I knew said both. It depends, so it was either one, but I grew up seeing. It's funny because I'll say the Appalachian Mountain, but I'll usually say the Appalachian Trail.
Interesting.
Yeah. Up here, it's Appalachian.
Yeah.
It's Appalachian.
I mean, most of my life I grew up saying Appalachian. I was, some people from the mountains sort of corrected me. Said, no, it's Appalachian. So I kind of use both.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, and this where we're at right now is like kind of the eastern edge of them. The South Mountains are the eastern edge of the Appalachian. I mean,
the trails through here.
Yeah,
and I have I actually was looking at a map. West Virginia is the only state that is totally enclosed within the Appalachian mountain chain. But as far as percentage of land area, Pennsylvania's second. It's between 2/3 and 3/4.
I just learned something.
Of the land, yeah.
This is why I hang out with this guy.
I was looking at this map, and it's just like the eastern edge is outside of the mountain chain. So it's like, oh, I didn't know that.
What's cool with Pennsylvania is the Appalachian Mountains or Appalachian Mountains go through it kind of like at an angle like that, and that's if you're looking at a map,
right?
And you get up north because of that turn, you're on the other side. And it's
on the trail, you mean?
Well, I'm just talking about the chain of mountains.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
The trail goes through at an angle, so it doesn't quite get up to the northern interior of PA. But when you get in that northern interior, it's like a totally different landscape. It's different. The weather patterns are different. It's crazy. It's there's so many different environs we have here. I mean, you look at Michaux State Forest. We're in a pine forest right now. Okay, go up here on the hillside up here, because we're on a place called Big Pine Flats, and you get up there and it's a totally different environment. You have yellow pine, there's some white pine, yellow pine, black gum, and then you have the blueberry scrub. Don't see that here.
Right.
And then you get down into the hollows, think Dark Hollow. That's a totally different monster down in there.
Yeah, it is.
So Michaux is pretty cool with that.
A lot of variety, yeah.
Got a lot of different environs in a small area.
And even with terrain in West Virginia, in the northern part of West Virginia where I live, we have small valleys. Beautiful small valleys.
Oh, they are. They're very beautiful.
But you go down in far southern West Virginia, you got hollers.
Yeah.
And
like down in Hinton.
Yeah, and so you'll have a holler that could be anywhere from 100 yards to a quarter mile wide. And that's it. That's all they are. And so they don't get much sunshine during the day. Most of them don't have any kind of internet service and very little cell service. So they have a landline.
Which is another reason to carry a map and be prepared.
Right, exactly. So the terrain is different, and that has impact on the culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a big impact.
Yeah.
A real big impact. Steve, you just told us one story. Okay, we usually try and end this with stories that we tell. Is there another one you could give us that would be kind of fun? Like if you're sitting around a campfire and we're talking like we usually do.
The other one that comes to mind is what I consider the most beautiful experience I have ever had out in the wild.
Okay, this will be cool.
So
I don't know if I've heard this one.
It was New Year's night.
Oh,
yeah,
you've heard this one.
Yeah,
yeah, this is awesome. I don't think you heard this. This is so awesome.
I don't know.
It was New Year's night, and we had a supermoon that night, and I always wanted to camp under a supermoon.
What year was this? 5 years ago?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, it's about 2020.
Yeah, like around there. Just look up supermoon on New Year's night, and it's whenever that was. And I solo camped in one of our favorite camping areas that we call Slice of Heaven.
And it is heaven. Absolute
it's
heaven.
Beautiful, beautiful mature hardwoods, and I solo camped, and I knew it was going to get cold that night, but I was ready for the cold, and I had my fire and I had my supper and turned in a little bit early and figured, well, I usually wake up several times during the night, so I'll enjoy it during the night. And during the night, my nose got stopped up, and I woke up, and I couldn't go back to sleep because my nose wouldn't open up, and I didn't take anything with me to open my nose back up. So I got up, stoked the fire, had a cup of tea, and sat by the fire for a little while, turned around like a chicken on a spit so I'd get every side covered because it was down near 0 degrees. And it wasn't very windy, which was good, but it was cold. It was cold. And so I did that for a while, and probably for an hour. And then I decided, you know what? I think I'm going to start packing up. I'm going to try to hike out of here without a flashlight, without using a flashlight. And so what I do is I go pack a little bit, then I go back, sit by the fire, and after
to keep warm.
About my second trip back, I decided, oh yeah, I'm going to have a cup of coffee now since I'm going to be up for a while. I didn't even know what time it was, but that moon was so bright, and everything has this amazing glow to it. If you've never been in the woods when there's a supermoon, I highly recommend that you go out and enjoy it. It's just, it's like you're in another world, a real ethereal quality that is indescribable, really. You just have to be there. So I had a cup of coffee and then went back and finished packing up and got my stuff ready and started walking out. And here it was, probably, I messed around probably for 2.5 hours before I actually left. And based on the time I got back to my car, it was probably 5 o'clock in the morning when I actually got out of there. And I started walking. I mean, I could see everything plain as day.
And that forest is very open.
Yeah.
I mean, the tree, it's big maples and oaks. What's the oak tree?
Poplars. We got poplars, and we got. There is a lot of white oak and red oak.
There's chestnut oak up there too.
And there's some chestnut oak. White oak is much more prominent there. When, like in my property in West Virginia, I have no white oak. It's all red oak, black oak, and chestnut oak.
But it's real open. I mean,
Yeah.
like what's behind us is not open compared to that. I mean, you can just see.
It is mature hardwoods that come from a dense canopy overhead, and nothing.
So awesome.
And it is beautiful. So then we cross the creek as we're going out, and then you go up a hill, and you start up the hill. It's a little sapling grove. So when I got there, I had to turn my light on just long enough to get through that little sapling grove, because there's lots of things that can trip you up, and that would be stupid if I didn't do that. So I turned on my flashlight enough to get through the sapling grove. As soon as I got out of the sapling grove, I turned the flashlight back off and walked all the way to my car. And for some reason, that was just the most amazing and beautiful experience I think I've ever had in the outdoors, despite the fact it was cold. Despite the fact that by the time I got back to the car, my fingers were very stiff and not moving and working very well. But it didn't matter, because...
Yeah, right? Isn't that amazing, though? Like, sometimes you just... Like, the beauty or something overrides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, I will never forget it as long as I live. And so I try to get out when there's a super moon. A lot of times it happens at other times of the year. The leaves are still on the trees and things like that. But this was just, it was so amazing and so otherworldly and such an experience that said, nature gives you so many things that if you're not in it, you really miss
Amen.
How things work.
Awesome.
And so that was probably the most beautiful experience I've ever had in the outdoors.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I want you to mention what you work for, the charity you work for, real quick.
I run a charity.
That's very important.
I run a charity called Teens Opposing Poverty, and what we do is we work with youth groups, mostly church youth groups, and teach them how to do outreach with homeless people, with senior citizens and disabled people who live in subsidized housing. And once a year, we have a week-long home repair mission camp where we help fix homes of people who can't afford to fix them themselves. And then we also have a fund where we help people with special needs, like helping them with rent, utilities, transportation, communication, and things like that. And been doing this since 1987. I started it with a group of teenagers at a church near Dulles Airport in Virginia, and it just, several times I thought it was going to end, and it then all of a sudden it would pick back up again. And so going next month marks 38 years since we made our first trip, and I became paid staff, which is, in all honesty, a stipend, but became paid staff in 2007. So it has been, and that'd be a whole nother set of stories I could tell.
Yes, yeah. We'll touch on that.
Yeah.
We'll touch on that.
Come back, we'll talk walking sticks.
Yes,
Yeah,
we'll talk
yeah.
walking sticks.
We'll talk walking
We'll
sticks.
get into gear on that one.
Yeah.
We'll get into gear. But we'll mention, we'll have the link for that down below in the description of the podcast. You take donations, correct?
Yes, we do take donations. You can go to teensopposingpoverty.org, and right on the webpage there's a place to donate.
Yep. So if you can do that, reach out. It'd be awesome. It's a great mission. They do a lot of good work. So, well, thank you.
My pleasure.
This is the second attempt at this, but we got it this time. And, listen, check us out, watch the YouTube channel. And like I said, this will be on YouTube. We're going to try and do this at least once a month right now. And eventually we will get there. I don't know. It would be awesome to do it once a week. I don't know if we can, but we're going to try. So, till next time, make sure you get out and do this. However you enjoy the outdoors. Doesn't matter whether you camp, hike, act like a crazy man, scream at the thing in the woods, whatever makes you happy, but just get out here. So fair weather and safe journeys.
And so it is, you've flown away, my friend. I think on you today. I hope sometimes you sing my songs all on the sunset.